Come on now, stream. Red. Cue music. Huh. Where's my music?
WTF.
WTF.
And we're live.
But we have no music.
Oh yeah, there's music. I can't hear that.
Very odd. Should we go musicless?
Oh.
I'm the type of guy that likes to roam around. Alright, that suffices. I don't know. Everything's right. This is playing. Strange. Huh. Alright, well, we're live. So let's just transition. And I'll figure it out next time. Here we are.
Bonjourn.
Alright. It's February 21st, Friday.
Yes, it is.
I'm Chris.
I'm Charlie.
And we are. Oh, sorry guys. Gosh darn it.
Gosh darn it. Excuse me.
I'll tell you what, last week, man, I had way too many F-bombs.
Yeah.
Way too many F-bombs.
And my grandpa's like, hey, send me the show. And I'm like, ooh, we'll have to start toning it down, making it a little bit more highbrow.
Yes. We have the vocabulary to refrain from that.
At least I would hope so.
All right, so I was telling Charlie, we were talking before the show that this is the least prepared I've been ever. You said I got you covered, so...
Except for his 73 years of life experience, so it's good there.
In dog ears?
That was an age joke. Sorry.
In dog ears? I appropriately responded.
Human dog. I don't know. The dog ear isn't like...
That would make me like 11.
But, never mind. I was going to say, my understanding of dog years isn't like it's 7 years per year. It like goes... Never mind.
The whole dog ears thing is... People used to live to around 70. Dogs live to around 10.
Oh, so it's like... Gotcha.
7. That's as scientific as it was.
It's so... You know what's funny is people talk about that dog years thing. It's like, that's all it is. Really just like...
That's it.
Yeah, it's like a dog, like that's the percentage of his life. Proportion.
70, 10, 7 years.
Perfect, that makes sense. All right,
Yeah,
let's
no,
go.
right. They mature, right. It's totally different.
That same guy was like, I'm going to go invent a heavy plumber.
So you know something I don't. Now I want to know. About the dog ears thing. You're going to say...
Oh, I thought it was like age 1 is like 4 years, and then like age 2 is... And I think that has more to do with not necessarily proportionate to lifespan, but maybe brain development. That doesn't make any fucking sense either.
No. And again, we got to find it. See.
I already dropped an F-bomb. I'm sorry. God.
Fuck. Whoops.
Shit. Oh!
Have you ever seen the movie The Blues Brothers?
Bits and pieces of it, yeah.
They're in front of their nun from like the,
that's what I was going to say, church, right.
And they're getting smacked for swearing, and they're like, shit, damn, Anyway.
The most played out joke in the history of man. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so what do you got?
So, I guess I have to lead today because Chris is unprepared. Typical. I wanted to talk about, maybe we do a public service announcement episode of PSA show.
In terms of?
Managing your finances.
We can start with that. Or you know what? Let's do a number of things. Finances, fitness.
Fitness is touchy for me.
Food discipline, all those kinds of things.
It's just being responsible. I feel like
being who and what you want to be. Let's do that.
I feel like the food and the fitness we might have covered a few times. I just think that... Never mind. Well,
we never covered them in depth, though.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So my brother, last night we were discussing wealth, credit, the concept of credit, right? That is having money that you don't have to back it up all the way, right? It's like just borrowing money. That's all it is. And he's like, how do people? God, again, that's 2. Okay, strike 2. No more.
We might need to put out a jar.
That'd be funny.
Ricky's part of the show.
Ricky, don't drop any F-bombs.
Say hi. Say hi to Ricky. Ricky, say hi to the people.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anyway, it just got me thinking. He was expressing his lack of enthusiasm for the way that like the system works, which is just money. It's fine. It's just how money, like, how do you get credit? How does credit benefit you? And he's like, but you're paying more money for the same thing. It's just stretched out. And I'm like, yeah, what?
Okay, you got to walk me through what he was complaining.
If you finance a car,
okay,
for whatever, it's a $100,000 car, you finance it over 6 years, you're going to end up paying whatever. I'm not very up on car dealer interest rates, but let's just say $120,000 instead of $100,000.
Okay,
which would be a lot.
Well, 10%. Make the math easy. So it's 110 grand.
So by my brother's logic, therefore, you just spent an unnecessary $10,000 because you could have just bought that car for 100 grand, but you don't have the 100 grand at one point within those 6 years, at any point, probably.
Right.
So he was like, and I don't know if he was just getting all riled up, but it was like he didn't get it, which is not like him at all. He's very, very smart. And if he watches this, I'm going to deny that I said that.
The whole episode?
I'd be like, that was a lie. It was April Fool's that day.
Okay.
But, yeah, so I don't know. We like went down this rabbit hole of being like, why, what, I don't understand what
like
you don't
get. Like it's not fair, or?
Like he was like, he didn't understand. He's like, how do people buy shit like that? And I'm like, because they pay extra to finance it. It was like the biggest.
Did he pay cash for his car?
No, it's a lease.
Okay.
So it's not even financed.
It's the same.
Really.
You're paying the depreciation, but
yeah,
whatever.
You're just borrowing, right? So I was like, people just borrow money all the time. That's like America is built on borrowing.
Yeah.
Think, what would it look like without that?
Yeah, he needs to watch It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And he explains, is it Henry Fonda? Explains, what's the deal with the bank? Well, you put money in the bank, and then I lend money to Mr. Jones, and so you all put in $1,000, 10 of you, and I lend $100,000 to Mr. Jones, so he can buy a house, and he pays me 10% interest, and I pay you all 5% interest, and I take the other 5% and run the bank and pay my salary, and that's how it works.
It's very simple when you look at it on paper or when it's explained in It's a Wonderful Life. So it was just surprising to me that he was so like miffed about the whole thing. Like, why would you be so stupid to spend extra money like on interest, just like the cost of money?
Because once you're ready to work, you don't have any money. You need to get to work. So you haven't saved up the 20 grand to buy a car. So you go sign a loan and you flip everything on its head. You start with stuff and you pay it off, and then at the end, hopefully you have some left over.
Well, and that's like the most basic form of that equation. You can, as long as you know how, interest works, money coming in, money you're paying out, you can totally beat the system. If you're just like, hey, I'm borrowing money cheaper than I am when it's being invested, so it makes more sense to have the money being borrowed than, right? It's like all, it just didn't make sense to me that he didn't get it. And maybe I'm exaggerating, so brother, I apologize if that's the case. I still love you sometimes.
So you made me think of something. Remember a few weeks ago when I was talking about Bernie Sanders being on Joe Rogan and that he wasn't terribly informed?
Yeah.
In terms of having facts and data.
Right. It's more just like questions.
Well, I don't know the numbers and don't have them right in front of me. Okay.
Or have them.
That's a problem.
Within.
Anywhere. On a note card. Right?
Down the memory hole.
But anyway, what he talked about was referencing forgiving college debt. And I don't remember if I talked about this or not. He said, but at 18, they're saying, just sign here. It's going to cost this much, and the interest rate's going to be this much, but just go ahead and sign.
Okay. Yeah.
And he and Joe were like, well, at 18, you're not old enough to understand that. Well, wait a minute. At 18, you're old enough to understand that you shouldn't be signing something you don't understand.
That's the first fucking part of it.
Right?
Third. Damn. Oh, God, that's strikeout.
And the second part of it is you should ask those questions. How much am I borrowing? how is this paid back and how is that going to cost me?
Yeah.
And if you're not smart enough, again, you're 18. You should be far enough along to have enough presence of mind to at least ask what you don't know about, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody else is saying, I'm 18, I should. Social justice warriors, there's plenty of them who are 18, 16, 20, whatever, right? Greta's 17, and the UN should be listening to her keynote speeches.
And making changes based on those. It's so
Right.
Yeah, when you could just say all those numbers.
But they're
and it's
saying
just-
at 18, you're not smart enough or mature enough to understand what you're signing in terms of student loans. So we need to forgive that debt. But at 18, you're allowed to vote for them.
But you should, at 18, the point is you should be able to understand the concept of a contract. That's all it is. It's just
Yeah,
a contract, not
I-
necessarily borrowing. Right.
Totally. I agree with that. But then where I went further was, but you're saying 18-year-olds are smart enough to do all this other stuff, including voting for you.
Yeah. And
So
dying.
pick
Yeah.
one. So just fucking pick one.
Yeah.
Oops. Just pick one.
I think that's 6 the episode. Yeah, pick one. Don't do the double. Right. This whole thing we were looking at back when Parkland was going on, and I don't know, whatever. I hate this argument, even though I hate it because it kind of goes against what I believe in. Like, I can't blame the state of the public on public education because people should take it upon themselves. But obviously, it's not. I can't expect that. Clearly, the evidence has shown. If schools taught kids more about stuff like that, instead of the dew point, whatever the case may be, it's like, okay, I have more value than I would have had I learned what the dew point is given a certain temperature or barometric pressure. Yada,
Well,
yada.
so I think the one and only mandatory class I had in high school was government,
Civics.
and it was called government, and it was one semester, and you just learned about the United States government, the history of the country, and then 3 branches of government and whatever else. It was one term. Maybe personal finance should be a class that is like nationally mandated in public schools.
Well, and it's a class that's available, but it's like, why are you taking personal finance? It's like, oh, because the school expects me to drop out and be a failure anyway, so they're trying to like mitigate the damage I can cause on society by having me
Well,
take like regular,
I think I've made very few mistakes in life, and I've told you this, and I'm not sure if I've said this on the show, but I started saving in my mid-30s, and I really wish I'd started in my mid-20s, because that whole compounding thing, even if it's only a little bit,
10 years makes a huge difference. Yeah.
huge. Even if it's only 10% is a great rule, but even if it's 5%, you can always find a way to spend less.
And
in most circumstances.
Yeah. And the part where it bites is it's not the first 10 years that hits you, it's the 40 years versus 50 years of compound interest. That's really
Right.
That's another thing. Like, most people probably don't get. They're like, what? I don't know. It's just so sad sometimes. Like, it's one of the most basic parts of society. It's like, you do X, Y, and Z, and I give you little green pieces of paper. And then you have to use those pieces of paper to run everything. And you don't know how to do it.
Did I tell you about the Tim Hortons spreadsheet I put together?
Yeah, about how much you spend over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was $100,000. Don't do this now. Don't do this now.
Yeah, stop. That's it.
And-
Just be done.
And when you're 65 years old, you'll have $100,000.
And
It was like 90 something, but whatever.
that's a penny
Don't
saved
do
is a
this.
penny earned. But that's $100,000 saved is $100,000 earned. which
Make
is
your own
amazing.
coffee, right? My coffee costs me less than $1 every morning.
Yeah. The buying coffee grounds, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just displeased. I know, and it's more close to me because I knew I never had to take out loans. Not that I went to a school that was worthy of getting loans anyway, but my friends would be getting. They'd be like, "Oh wow, like there's $3,000 extra that I had this semester because I didn't need it for tuition or books or whatever." It's just like I get to use the money. I'm like, dude, don't spend that.
Yeah, put that away because you're gonna have to pay it back.
And it's going to be 4 or 5 times whatever it's worth today when you pay back. Yeah, so there was no, and like, obviously, kid is just like, oh, cool, free money, and then you fast forward.
Cool,
however many
I'm going
years.
out west skiing this semester.
3K, what? Yeah, it's
I'll take a
blown it,
friend,
yeah.
right? Bam.
Yeah, it's gone.
Drinks around
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Hey, Dad, can I get some money? Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like there should be more, not even more, less stupidity. It was like, it's so sad because I have no idea how to fix that.
Fast food. We've said this before, but fast food, cigarettes, beer, dining out, clothes you don't need. And I'm not without frivolity, right?
Yes.
But it's all part of a plan.
Yeah, I don't know. The clothes thing, I've been lucky at that. I rarely ever, if ever, spend money that I don't need to on clothes. Like, I just buy cheap stuff. Evident by my sweater here. A friend of mine at work, he's a black guy, great guy. He's funny. And he used to always be like, stay smooth, Chuck. Like, oh, you look fucking good, bro.
Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck.
Chaz.
Chaz, yeah. It's anyway, so the one day I wore this into work and he's like, what the he's like, what are you wearing? And I'm like, what? He's like, you look like a lesbian, bro. I was like, dude, after all these days of him calling me, he's like, man, you smooth. Like, he's like, you look like a lesbian. And I was like, Jesus.
That's a little harsh.
He's being honest though. So like, that's a good sign.
So is this guy Rico Suave himself or not?
I plead the fifth. No, he's got style, but it's whatever. It's
It's his style.
different kind of style. Yeah, it's not like.
Yeah, but he's consistent, and he would never come in frumpy clothes or whatever.
No, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Spends money on clothes. Yeah, it's fine.
Does he ever come in like a Nike sweatsuit on the weekends?
No,
Okay, so he's consistent.
not that I've seen,
Okay.
but I'm gonna be watching now because he probably would do
Be
that.
watching. Be like, dude,
What the hell?
what are you going to play hoops?
I always do that. This is an office. What are you wearing? But anyway,
So, did we play that or not?
I mean, kinda, yeah. But like, we never really got down to it. Like, did I ever tell you about I had a discussion with my old boss at the pizzeria. Poor people are poor because they spend money like poor people spend money.
Kinda.
Yeah, so it's like he came in one day and it was like, you know what I was thinking last night? He's not super well off, whatever. He makes a good living, but he works like a slave. Great guy. And he's like, are poor people poor? They just like perpetuate their state because they buy a 6-pack every night or a 12-pack and play Keno and buy lottery tickets and buy old shitty used cars instead of like leasing cars and stuff like that. Smoke cigarettes. And I'm like, dude, yeah, that plays. How much of your money is gone just for whatever convenience or leisure?
I would take it one step further and say it's living and more kind of thinking poor. And
Yeah.
if I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have thought about it more and be more prepared. But there's just like thinking poor. I can't do this because I can't do that because. No. Like first things, paying cash for a car. So if you have $2,000 and you go out and buy a $2,000 car, no, take that $2,000 and stick it somewhere. And go lease a car and find a zero down lease and it costs $200 a month or $300 a month or whatever. But you can certainly get a car for $300 a month.
And
On
the
a-
servicing is free
on a
for the first 2
lease,
years.
right?
Yeah.
And but then I won't have anything at the end of the lease. But what you'll have for 3, 4, 5 years is totally reliable transportation so that you don't ever lose a job because you couldn't get there or ever forego 8 hours of pay because you couldn't get there.
Yeah.
Right? If you're making $10 an hour and you lose an 8-hour shift, that's $80, right? So that's a quarter of your car payment.
To me, it's like the maintenance. It's like if anything happens to the car, it's like I don't even want to hear it. here's the car. I'll be waiting outside. Tell me when it's done. When it's ready to drive again. It's like, okay. Like on my Challenger, I busted the ball joints on it twice. And
In potholes.
I probably
Plead the fifth.
drove that thing like a jackass. But yeah, both times it was free. They were like, yeah, cool, it's covered by the warranty. And if it had happened a third time, that would have been the lemon law. But I was so close to getting all that money back.
Yeah. Yes. You got to live. Don't think poor. Don't think poor. It'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, just God. And that's, you know what? That's funny. The thinking poor. That's how my brother Gordy was like coming off to me last night, but I didn't really make the connection. It was like, I can't do this, and it's like I can't. I don't know.
That's interesting. I can't do this. Then don't.
No, it's like you're wrong. You can.
The confines of the game. That kind of gets to the confines of the game. Do you remember that? My theory.
Re-summarize.
So we're not free. We're not totally free in America. I mean, you can get in a car if you have a car.
Lease it.
It's reliable with a warranty.
36 months.
Drive anywhere you want, right? Without restriction. Do whatever you want, kind of without restriction. I'll tell a quick story, anecdote about freedom. I was at a business thing in the state of New York, and I was in a limo, one of those black nice cabs, like a Lincoln Town Car, getting taken from upstate New York back to Manhattan. I made a weekend trip out of it, see some friends. Anyway, the guy was from somewhere in South America, and he's like, you think you're free in the United States, and he's like, there's all these different kinds of freedoms. And he's like, I think it might have been Brazil. He said, my family and I, we would go to the beach, and we would spend the night on the beach. We would just lay our blankets out and sleep under the stars in the sand. He's like, here in New York, if you lay on the beach at 10 o'clock, the police come and they kick you out. He's like, that's not free. He's like, so there's different kinds of freedom. He said, but, we have a controlled economy, and I'm not free to make money and spend it on whatever I want. And that they have a totally closed economy. Everything's so expensive in Brazil. Anyway, so back to the confines of the game. If you live someplace where you need protection from the elements in terms of air conditioning, then you need an apartment or house. If you live in a place where you need protection from the cold and or heat in the summer, you need an apartment or a house. And right, because you can't, what else are you going to do? We're not prepared to be survivalists and,
Oh, I know.
have
You go
$500 or $1,000. And so you need a house, which means you need a job, which means you need transportation to and from a job. And for most people, the bus isn't really realistic. Gonna need to pay utilities. You need food. So you have to get a job. You basically have no choice unless you're going to be homeless. You have to get a job so you can have a place to stay and you can have transportation and you can buy food and all that. So we're all kind of like in a rat race, in like the rat race.
Yeah, that's the whole point. That's why capitalism works so well, because the people who deserve it get to the top, and the people who don't, I'm trying not to curse, don't care as much, buy Keno tickets, play Keno.
Quick another story. I remember I was early 20s, and I was in Birmingham or Royal Oak. I remember Woodward, and it was when the lotto was a reasonably new phenomenon. And back then, it only got to like $10 million or whatever. That would be a big one. And it was big. And I remember there was this woman, and the way she was dressed, the way, just her hair, her dress, her
Physique.
She was, there was, you could even see like a level of health in her. You could tell she just had little means.
Yeah.
And there was a line. There were probably 20 people in line, like a half-hour wait to get lotto tickets. I'm like, whatever. I got the time. I want to buy a ticket. And for me, a lotto ticket, even though, like we said, if you do it consistently, it's a really reliable way to go broke slowly.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
That's the perfect way to. Yeah. No return.
Yeah. Yes. Super high risk, super high return, super high risk. But anyway, and I'm going to spend maybe $5, $2, $3, $5, whatever. This woman had a handful of cash. It had to be at least $100 in $1 bills. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, lady, I wanted to go up to her and say, don't do this. Don't do this. No offense, but I can tell by looking at you that you can't, whether that's $80 or $180, that's money you can't. And she's thinking, if I buy enough tickets, I could win and this will be over. And I'm just like, you're foregoing food or your heating bill or, whatever, to pursue this just intellectually bankrupt pursuit, whatever. I just felt so bad. I felt so bad. I just wanted to go talk to her and say, don't do this. Don't do that. That's money you don't need, and you're not going to see anything from it. Man, that was a bad day. That was a long time ago. That was early 20s. Early 20s.
I bit my tongue. I almost made another age joke. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. Job number one, unless you're, you have a unique situation wherein your expenses are covered by, let's just say, some sort of familiar wealth, right? Family or otherwise. I don't know. It just is sad to me that there's like, it's like the contract. It's like, I shouldn't have to pay this back because whatever the case is.
The student
Name
loan
a reason.
or?
Yeah, well, that goes back to that, but it's like, branches out from there, my disgust with the current status.
Okay, you got to expand on that because you're talking around the edges.
I apologize. It's like, this all to me comes back to the thing where it's like, I have this much in student loan debt and I have this much and I'm paying it back I'm making the minimum payment. I assume, I've never heard anybody say that, but I'm making the payment and it's going to take me 40 years to pay it off. And it's like, that was all spelled out to you on the paper when you signed it, however many years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I have zero sympathy nor empathy for people who complain about student loans. Don't take them.
It's just making good on your word, right? Yeah.
You entered into a contract 100% voluntarily. If it was a bad deal, you shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
If you didn't understand that you weren't going to be able to pay it back in 5 years, you should have crunched the numbers. It's not hard math.
Yeah.
If you take $200,000 in student loans and you can afford to pay back $5,000 a year, it's 40 years.
And that's assuming it's all principal, right? It's like,
right.
Yeah. So,
well, they're not. I took out one student loan. It was for not like $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever, but the interest rate was low. It was simple interest, so it wasn't like usury or whatever, pushing that. But I don't know. I think there are some student loans that are pretty expensive. Is that correct?
Like I said, I don't know. I've never needed one or
ginger ale.
Yeah, you're excused. Yeah, I've never needed one and never been in. I don't even know. I've never even thought about it. But I'm sure there's, just like all loans, you can have modifications, different terms, so on and so forth, deferments, whatever.
Well, it was like, so I think, whatever it was, but I paid it back the minimum, and it was like, I don't know, $40 a month forever.
Yeah.
And I paid it, and no big deal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a lot of money, and I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah. And here's one of the things that makes me think that it's kind of deceptive, or at least like predatory. Close buddy of mine at work, he owes, I don't know, $75,000, let's say. And apparently there's a prepayment penalty on that of $16,000 if you wanted to just pay it off like that.
That's bullshit.
And I'm like, how?
Most mortgages don't have a prepayment penalty. That's,
Not anymore.
That's bullshit.
It doesn't
yeah.
exist. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's, and if you just known a little bit more when you were, if you just asked somebody, you don't even have to know. You can be like, hey, does this make sense? Like, how much is $16,000? Do you even know how much that is when you're like,
You know, I
18
just
years
thought
old?
of something. Tell me what you think about this. Student loans. How many people say, all right, I'm going to go to undergrad, then I'm going to go to law school or med school or whatever, and I'm going to be so rich. And because you didn't work hard enough, or you weren't that smart, or you didn't go to a reputable enough school, or you didn't finish, you flunked out for whatever reason. How many of these, I guess I'll call them bad decisions, how many of these decisions that didn't work out well because of the difficulty to pay back were based on some grandiose idea that I'm going to be
A
a
millionaire.
freaking brain surgeon and this is all going to be fine. And lo and behold, you go to Northwestern, Central Eastern Michigan Technical School for typewriter repair.
Typewriter repair. Call that vocational.
I stole that from A Few Good Men. The Jocko
Great
Buffo
movie.
School of Typewriter Repair. Anyway,
Another great movie.
how dare you sleep under the very blanket of freedom I provide and then question the manner in which I provide it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Need me.
and then they don't go to med school or law school because they failed themselves and then it doesn't work out. You know, I'll bet that is not an insignificant number of the people who take out the loans.
Yes. Now here, let me add my perspective on that. I think, and this wasn't necessarily my case because I was like, even in high school, I was kind of like, I got to get my act together. I'm gonna be homeless. You know, like I'm not gonna get. And I was exaggerating, but you know, when you're a hormonal teenager, and I'm still hormonal now, by the way, just so you guys know. You're like, oh my God, like world's crushing down on me. But I feel like most people in high school, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go to college, and because I go to college, I'm gonna do X with my life in terms of a career, and because it's a career, I'm gonna be rich. And it's like it's not like it's so not the case.
So in the Fortune 500, right? 500 biggest companies that employ a shitload of people. Fortune 500, how many CEOs are there?
500.
Exactly 500.
That's
Right.
math, folks.
So if the average Fortune 500 company employs 10,000 people, that's 5 million people, 5 million jobs, right? You got 500 CEOs and 5 million people. So what's the quick math there? Yeah, 1 in 10,000 is going to be CEO. And guess what? It's just math.
I like how you did that.
You might, did it up and then
You're
just
like-
did it right back
It's the
down.
exact same equation. You're like,
Yeah.
so one CEO.
I realized that when I was doing it.
It's 1 in 10,000.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Smart guy.
Yes. I did the math. I didn't do the conversation.
It's even more impressive you didn't know that was the slow way of doing it. It's the harder way to do it, but you still got it done.
Yes. Anyway, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's just, so there's one CEO and there's, I don't know, in each company, 5, 10, 15 executive vice presidents. I'm not going to do the math for that, but, and on and on. And then there's how many thousands of managers, right? And managers are people who are above average.
Yeah.
So if your plan is to be a CEO, it's not a pure meritocracy. It's not. There's a lot of luck. There's just a lot of luck and a lot of other factors that go into how well you do. And if you think that you're going to get out of school and you're going to make $500 grand a year, you're not. You're not. if you're lucky, you're going to be the above average manager, right? And you're going to make $75,000, $100,000 a year. Do the math in the worst case scenario, and that's how you pay back your loan.
Yeah.
You know what a lot of people don't do? I was trying to help a guy at work. Gosh. He's the guy who drives the floor cleaners Zamboni.
Oh, yeah.
And he works his ass off. He's one of the Ukrainian guys I was telling you about. Yeah. And he's like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I said, are
womp,
you...
Womp. Just kidding.
Yeah, I said, are you good at math? And he said...
What does math?
Yeah, no. He said, yeah, I'm good at math. And I said, here's what you want to... This is the job you want. You want to be a robot programmer. They're in short supply now, which means they're going to be really in short supply in 5, 15, 25 years. So, Macomb Community College has a very good and around the area reputable 2-year. You get an associate's degree in robot programming. Minimum, you come out of there making $50,000 a year. If you go in at 18, you come out, you're 20 years old. It's Macomb Community College. It's not terribly expensive.
Right.
So I said, Macomb Community College, robot programming. And I pulled it up on my phone. He was at this luncheon we were at that was for everybody. I said, here it is. Go do this. And I said, you can do this at night. You can still work as much as you're working here. And you can go do this at night. It'll take 4 or 5 years, but when you're done, this is over. And you're good to go. And if all you do is program robots, you'll start at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Then just like this job, if you work overtime, you're going to make that much more. And if you keep doing that, you can build on your skills and or become a manager and get it, So I followed up. I'm like, so you get this? Yes. And you're going to do this. Because I'm like, you need to do this. You need to follow through.
Wait, before you finish the story, let me just explain to the audience what's going on in this guy's head. He's like, whatever, this is my job. I do it. This guy, semi kind of my boss, right? You're telling him all this stuff, like, how do you make your life better? And he's just like, yeah. But like, all he's thinking is, yeah, like that sounds great. That guy's no.
He asked me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
How do I not ride this floor cleaner for the rest of my life?
Oh, I thought you said
How do I become you? He asked me.
Okay, the way that I thought it was like, this job is backbreaking labor, and you're like, hey, you know what, you could do that. Yeah. Okay, never mind.
So he solicited me.
My apologies.
So no, it's all right, and it's a fair assumption because I would say in most cases. So, but I said to him, Macomb Community College, robot programming, and I'm like, you Google that, it's gonna come up. So a couple of weeks pass. I'm like, hey, I call his name. I'm like, how'd that go? Are you? And he's like, the program, he didn't use the word doesn't exist, but he's like, it's not out there. I couldn't find it. And I'm like, and you took the instruction I gave you, and he's like, yep. I said, Macomb Community College, robot programming. He's like, yep. And I go, hang on. So I get my phone, and I put in Macomb Community College, robot programming. And literally the page comes up. And I'm like, I don't know if he lied to me or he didn't take instruction well. Or
that's not lying. It's like, that's just like, it's just ineptitude.
But it was like, it doesn't exist. I did exactly what you said, and it's not out there.
Yeah, that Ukrainian to English is tricky.
You're sure?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm like, dude, here it is. He's like, well, I don't know how you find it. And maybe he believed this. It was like, I had the key. My phone had the key to some miracle, entrance into this information that his phone didn't. It was just bizarre.
That guy that laid awake all night that night being like, why is my life so much harder? Like, that just, even Google's like working against me. They won't even show me that. No, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think he went there.
I joke. But
here's another one. This is a a friend of a kind of relative came here from Puerto Rico, and he wanted to. The Army was paying $50,000, up to $50,000, depending upon how you scored on testing coming in, and what you might qualify for. Up to a $50,000
Signing bonus.
Yes,
Yeah, they're doing that right now. Navy, 40K.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So he at the recruiter had failed and when I say failed, he couldn't even get the minimum score to get into the Army. Now, I will say I was pretty impressed with the test you have to take. They're not taking any old schlub. You had to have decent. There was a lot of geometry. And it's 10th grade geometry, but it's still geometry.
You're talking about the ASVAB?
I don't know. It was.
You ever took one of those? Like,
I took his practice tests.
oh, yeah.
So he hands this to me. I was good at math. And I whipped through, and there were, I don't know, like 50 problems, and I whipped through it in probably 20, 25 minutes.
You're like, oh, 97%.
I got 100% right.
Of course.
And and he goes, "How'd you do that?" He goes, "Teach me that," almost verbatim, maybe verbatim. "Teach me that trick."
I can't teach your biology to be like my biology, bro.
No,
Sorry.
it's not that. I said
At some level.
there's no, and he was convinced that, like, I went to some Dale Carnegie class where in an hour or two I learned how you figure out how to do and I said, so-and-so, it's not a trick. It's that when I took math, when I took any class for my whole life, I studied the class. I studied. And I'm like, I haven't done this shit since 10th grade.
It's probably kind of fun, like throwback.
It
right?
was
Yeah,
fun.
right.
I was going through doing, there's like
You're like, oh.
angle programs and circular circles and, 30, 60, 90 triangles and shit
Numbers
like
are
that.
cool.
And
Yeah. Right.
it was fun. And I went through and went through it all. Teach me that trick. I'm like, I spent a year doing geometry in 10th grade.
You're like, this is Euclid.
And paid.
Starting square one. Okay.
So it was just, teach me that trick. And I said, all right, I'm going to teach you how to do one of these. And they're all different. So it was like 10 or 15 minutes teaching him, like, that everything in a circle adds up to 360. There was like a 180 degree plane. And then there was a line through it, and it went through it like, I don't know, whatever. So this and this angle add up to 180, and this and this angle add up to 180. So they give you one or two, and it's just arithmetic at that point. You're just filling it up.
You'd literally just shade it in and be like, oh, that's this.
Well, no, you just do the math in your brain. They'll like give you two that, two give you the answers to the whole thing, and then the other two is just subtracting 90 from 180 or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like, so that's what this is. And he just didn't get it. I'm like, so 360, right? 90, 90, 90, 30, 150, 150, 30, or whatever, and it was frustrating and
I was going to say, yeah.
kind of humbling because he had no clue. He was a deer in the headlights. He'd never, I don't think, seen this stuff. He was like amazed, like, oh my God. And there's some miracle thing.
Yeah, I maybe I shouldn't judge because I have a math ceiling that we talked about, just horrible. Like, could never get past a certain point.
Yeah, but let's say that this was beyond your math ceiling.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have presumed I did it with a trick that I learned in an evening at some how to take an Army entrance exam.
No, my previous
class.
statement should obviously say that enough. It's like, I have a math ceiling. It's not like...
Yeah,
right.
but you would have known that this guy did math and he went...
Yeah.
I mean, if it were, integral calculus, you would have been like, all right, this guy went the whole way. If you watched that, you would have been like, this guy obviously did very well in high school math.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Nerd. Yeah, no,
Nerd.
you're right. It's not like, whoa, magic.
But and again, it was just sad. So, didn't get in the Army, didn't get the 50 grand, went back to Puerto Rico.
the way that I understand it, you have to have a specialized skill anyway. You have to be like a doctor or an engineer or some shit like that.
But yeah, they're going to want to see some propensity towards something. Even if you suck in math, if your reading comprehension, is whatever, 75th percentile, they'll be like, oh, this guy.
Coder. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Bam. There you go.
Bam.
Ship them. Right.
Ship them, but bid them.
Yeah. There's something I like just philosophically about like the military and how that shit works, but America's got that figured out.
Charge that hill.
That one.
If Y is in your vocabulary, that's the problem. I'm not sure. Well, I don't think I.
Just kidding, yeah. Any other questions?
Right.
Two guys like carry the body away.
Charge that hill. You out of your fucking mind?
Half of you have bullets, the other half do not. It's up to you to find out which is which. Yeah, Russia. That's messed up.
And
Shit, yeah.
and China. Send guys up a hill with sticks.
Oh, just
Let the enemy run out of bullets, and then have the guys with guns charge the hill.
yeah. China. Wait, what war?
I think that was the Korean War.
I was gonna say I'm trying to think. China, like Korean War, is the only.
I think that was the Korean War.
What else have they been involved in? There's total tangent now, but whatever.
I'm not your best historian.
That's okay. I'm pretty good at that stuff, and I don't even know. But either way. Anyway. Yeah. Just learn. The best thing that you can learn is learn how you learn and like where your flaws are. What you do not know. And you can also decide what's worthless to know. Like the dew point.
Yeah, there was a guy. He was, I think he was Indian, and he was on Rogan. And I think I told you this. He talked about determining a lot of things, and one is your value of time. I don't know if I told you this. And
I've
he's like,
heard. Go ahead.
so decide what your leisure time's worth, right? And one of the things was like when you make decisions about, like, say, mowing your lawn, and you need to have a dollar figure. So if your leisure time is worth $25 an hour, and it takes 2 hours to mow your lawn, so anything under $50 you should pay to have your lawn mowed.
Right.
And he's like, even returning something to the store, if it's, $24 and it's going to take an hour, just donate it or give it away,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. And this guy was very, very good about, how to, I just thought of something I want to talk about, just how to manage your time with respect to money. And it had to do with making sure you spend your time wisely, but also accumulating money efficiently. And now I forgot what I wanted to talk about. Damn.
That was quick. That was like goldfish.
Yes.
Gone.
Yes. Palm tree.
Squirrel.
Palm tree treasure chest. Scuba diver.
Yeah. Conceptualizing the usage of your time. Don't spend money on, I don't know, lawnmowers. You're going to make landscaping jokes? I don't know.
Nope.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just instead of thinking of your time on your job as what your labor's worth just when you're there, it's like constantly that's what your time is worth. Or even more than that, or less, whatever the case may be. But that's
I
where
lost it.
Yeah. That's where I drift from the Scotsman's Code. Because that argument makes a lot more sense than, I'm going to return these cans for 80 cents. And it'll take me 45 minutes to go to Meijer and
Doesn't
back.
matter of principle.
Yeah, it's like, oh, God, just, yeah.
Well, the other thing is, it depends. What were you going to do with the 4 hours? If you're like, if that is a good use of your time in terms of, if that's leisure to you, right? What do you want to do with your 4 hours?
Right.
I want leisure. What's leisure? Doing something of value. What's that? Returning cans. So if the 4 hours is all positive mental time, then it's a worthwhile activity.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funniest thing is,
and it gets abstract, but
well, I was just going to say, the funny thing about it is like the equation is unique to each person based on whatever they like to do. It's like if you like saving money, that could be your leisure time right there.
right.
Yeah.
Right. If you get reward, if pushing the lawnmower has a net benefit, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, So my leisure time is worth $25 an hour, but I would say the peace of mind I get from this is worth $15 an hour, and it costs, so there's $30 an hour in return. It costs $25 to have the lawn mowed. You're $5 to the good.
Yeah.
That's where it can get abstract. Anyway, I thought of something today. I watched a podcast. So you know the Weinstein brothers, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so Eric Weinstein's got this very dry, cerebral, college professor podcast. But he had his brother on. So you got two very, very smart, extremely educated PhD guys. And it made me think of, so they got into some stuff that left me behind, which is fine. And I'm thinking, like, are you and I to them like midwits?
Probably. Yeah.
Those guys are dangerous enough to understand a little bit of what we're talking about, just enough to, like, if we get in a conversation with us, to totally annoy the hell out of us.
You're just like,
Because, like, what we're considering midwits, like, smart enough to identify the problem, but not smart enough to have anything to do with solving it.
You're like,
frustrating the hell out of you and me.
You're like the
maybe
sun.
right? Maybe that's what I am to them. Like, they're
Right,
talking about this shit, and I'm like, oh my god. And I won't say most of it. A lot of it was just schooling. They were just talking about, like, the manner by which you do research, and so, I never pursued a PhD, so a lot of the language was foreign to me, and a lot of the methods I obviously wouldn't be familiar with. So there was a lot of that, which I could have accumulated, but just haven't, right?
Yeah.
Then a lot of it was very, very high level intellectual, conceptual stuff, and I'm like, unless I sit here, and maybe even if I just sit here and hang on every word, I couldn't keep up.
I haven't had that sensation in a long time. And, like, I used to get that, whatever, in high school. You're, like, watching something, and you're like, what? Like, nuclear fusion? What the fuck? And you're, like, listening to it, but the words are a different language. I haven't had that in a while, but back when that was first going on, I didn't know that that's what that was. It's like you just don't know. That's
Right. Yeah. So I didn't have the arsenal in terms of the vocabulary, just because I didn't go down the same roads. But again, some of the shit was above me, and it was still interesting, and it was educational because I picked up some stuff. The story he told, though, when they kind of got past it and told this story, oh my gosh, this guy discovered some stuff about what's bred into lab rats that get purchased for research.
Yeah.
Basically, lab rats, I guess under 8 months old, reproduce much more quickly than lab rats that are 8 months old and older. So because in the lab rat business, right, you want to maximize return, you want lab rats that are reproductive. So what they did was they bred out some of the genome traits that would make the way these rats react to
Aging.
drug testing and other types of testing much more aligned with how this shit would react in human beings. So wild rats, and then, kind of reverse Darwinism or Darwinism, whatever. What the 8-month-old rat becomes.
Yeah.
And this guy, the story is, wrote this paper, and it got, like, recognized by some and kind of, like, squashed by others, and that there are potential huge repercussions in what are presumed to be, and this aired 2 days ago. 2 days ago. So this is going to potentially shake up the scientific community big time. Yeah, it was really interesting. So when I was driving around today, I was glued to the whole thing, because the last, say, half to 2/5 to half of it, probably 2/5, was this story, like this conspiracy story. And it was just totally exciting. It was like out of a book. It was like a Tom Clancy waiting to happen scenario.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah, it was.
But don't you want the human adjacent lab rat?
Yes.
Right. So that's, yeah, to me, that's like cool.
Yeah. So,
Keep doing it. It makes more sense.
wait. I'm not sure we're talking the same thing.
It seems like you're like, this is going to like shake up the medical community. What would be the impact of the story being released?
Oh, that certain drugs, and he even named a few. So basically, like, it would. And I understand. It's funny. I was listening to it. I'm like, I understand what they're saying, but I'm not going to be able to explain this to somebody else. I don't get it well enough.
That thought was just, I'm like, can Chris explain it? Idiot.
So it did. There were two big things. It undermeasured the toxicity of, and this all had to do with the way that chromosomes behaved in these rats. So it would underreport the toxicity of certain substances and overreport resistance or immunity. I forget. They were using other words, but basically like resistance to things like something that might cause cancer, say, for example. And one of them was erythromycin, hugely prescribed antibiotic, has a super high level of toxicity to human beings, like dangerous. Something that should never have been approved by the FDA.
Wow.
But because of the similarity in, actually it was mice, in mice and the way they, I guess, metabolize or whatever you want to call it, certain things, like in this case drugs, that it's okay. So, and then he rattled off 3 or 4 other ones, but the one I remembered was erythromycin. And it was like, wow. Really cool stuff.
So
Really
that was
cool
the
stuff.
piece that I was missing, is that it's like altering the effects of the study. So it's not necessarily like clean and
Well,
clear.
it's not altering. It's just it's an inaccurate. It's creating a model that's inaccurate to the way that a human being would react to these drugs.
Yes, and then that's maybe altering isn't the right.
Here's something really neat that made me think of this. Somebody was explaining Darwinism. So
I love Darwinism.
most diseases that only affect or would affect children, or particularly that would only affect somebody who is pre-reproduction age, get through evolution, through the evolutionary process, get eliminated from our risk pool. So like,
Yeah,
old-
if you die
old-
before
old-
you are able to pass on the genetics that
no,
contain whatever.
if you don't procreate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you die before you're able to pass
So,
on
like,
the genes,
that's why
then
a
it's
lot-
good for.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
a lot of kids don't get cancer, and a lot of older people do, and like why kids wouldn't get dementia, and older people do, and I don't know, like the disease process. So maybe these aren't the perfect examples, but so kids don't get sick because the shit that kills them doesn't get passed on through breeding. So just by natural selection, if a kid is predisposed to die from disease X,
At age
he
15.
dies, never procreates, never creates somebody to pass that trait on.
That's the stick with Darwinism too. It's like all you have to do is get to that reproduction, like that point to procreate, and then it's like, fucking did it, boom,
Boom.
Yeah, you're like, I just ruined the rest of my species. Yeah. No, but yeah, that stuff's really cool. It's
It's
like,
really cool.
I'm a total dork when it comes to that shit. It's like, oh, like how?
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff.
It's like we were a fish at one point, and then it's like the fish grew legs, and it decided to walk on land.
Here's what I don't understand. I can't, and maybe somebody can explain it to me. I can't get past. So there's all these different kinds of primates.
Yeah.
right? So you got bonobo monkeys and chimpanzees and apes and
Orangutans.
yeah. So different. So, and I don't know how many kind of primates there are, but what, half a dozen, a dozen? Why is there more than one?
Because they all, yeah, family tree.
But, I guess different species of fish. Why didn't it? I mean, to me, Darwinism would suggest that there'd be one primate. One would endure, and the rest wouldn't.
Well,
And or maybe it's not all played out.
I can explain this. So you have, let's just say you have the species, whatever, ape. I want to use the real names because it's so much easier for me than like just making it up. But okay, so you have Ardipithecus ramidus, ancient, whatever, ancestor of humans and monkeys and whatever the hell. So like you have this species that's like doing all right, they're getting by, and then over time there's maybe like a small section of it or certain individuals in the group that have some sort of mutation. Mutation allows them to survive better, and they then pair up. And as you pass the mutation along, it becomes more secluded, yada, so on and so forth. And it's possible to have the base species continue to survive with the new species, and that point is when they can no longer interbreed. So you have mutation, and then the regular, like the base model, floor model, still going strong, which can also have different mutations stem from that. So it's like it's not like you have one path from each species. You can have 5 things leading off of the same group, and then from there it's just spider webs.
So that's why we all came from the amoeba, the
Yes.
single-celled organism.
Yeah.
So it's just.
Yeah. Infinite possibilities. The thing that blows my mind is like, how do you go from asexual reproduction to sexual reproduction? It's like, what? There was one thing that could just do everything itself, and it's like now you need these 2 puzzle pieces to fit together to make life. That seems like an unnecessary step.
Oh, it's a necessary step.
Well, right. And, you're like, evolution, what the hell? But yeah, it's obviously, yeah.
Can anything fertilize itself?
The Virgin Mary. No. Yes. I don't know. I'm not that well versed in it.
But then you'd have, well, whatever. Bad joke. That was interesting. Maybe we should quit while we're ahead.
Is it that boring?
I don't know. Are we at an hour?
Yeah,
We-
just about.
We were moving slowly for a while. That was cool. You got anything else that's cool?
What else is cool?
Mama Pajama rolled out of bed.
What?
The song at the beginning.
Oh,
Karaoke came up.
we're gonna do some karaoke next episode. Science is cool. Being smart is cool because you get to a point when you realize that being cool past a certain age is no longer cool. There you go.
Dare to be dorky.
Dare to be dorky. It's just better for you.
All right. We're gonna go out on just karaoke. I think if I can do this.
Do you know the legend of John Henry?
The Legend of John Henry.
Isn't that Johnny Cash?
Uh,
Never mind.
okay, let's see. This is the best we can do. I'm not going to sing to it.
It's all right.
All right, later, people.
Peace.
It's not up.
It's not.
Now it's up.
Oh, cool.